So you're 35, you want to settle down, you want to have kids, but the burning question, why are you staying single? And is that by choice? This was the comment I got on my Instagram from Ali. You know, one of the things I think about as I was growing up was this pressure, the pressure to settle down, to find a girl, get married, and have kids as fast as possible. And I think it comes a lot from Asian parenting. They never want you to date when you're like in your teenagers while you're in school, but all of a sudden, as soon as you graduate, they expect you to get married immediately. And sometimes we just feel this pressure of like finding a partner right away. And I have to admit, I've always felt this pressure, and I still do feel this pressure, especially at 35. That's the problem sometimes. We feel this pressure because they're comparing us to like your cousin or your friend or your parents' friend's kid. They're getting married. And as you go through these phases and see all this comparison, it brings up this question of like, what's wrong with me? One of the things that I always think about is my mom and dad fighting back in the day, and how my dad especially, he took a lot of his like anger, trauma, everything, Vietnam War and stuff, and took it out on me. Like, I love my dad, rest in peace. I remember how I felt around the house. It's hard to remember the exact moment sometimes. I felt like I always had to be perfect, no matter how much I did, like try to be the perfect Asian child. And I remember for every little mistake that I had, like sometimes like I would drop something because I was a clumsy kid, or maybe as something as innocent as closing a door. I remember my dad storming into my room, yelling at me, beating my ass over the smallest things. And I was like, I remember those moments when I was like, why am I such a f***up? I never had like a male role model. And I was just left to kind of find my own way, figure out things by myself. I never really had that much, that support I always wanted. I think about the consequence of like, I was like, I never want to really have my children ever relive those moments ever again. Choosing your partner is one of the most important decisions that you make in your life. And for someone like myself who eventually wants to start a family, she's going to be the mother of my kids and the future grandmother of my grandkids. She's going to be my number one partner through the ups and downs of not only life, when my mom like eventually passes away, the ups and downs of the business. I think about how important it is to have someone who is like mentally stable, someone who can tactfully communicate, someone who won't beat my kids and will actually support them and have that feminine energy. The reason why I don't want to repeat the cycle is because not having a male role model turns them into like a nice guy. It's like from this book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. This was me. I would be like a nice guy and people please and do things for others. I would like be the one who drove the girls and guys home, paying for all those dinners. At the time, I said it was cool. I think about it nowadays in like 10 years, 15 years later, and I'm asking like myself, what is this all for? Because half these people I don't even talk to anymore. And eventually I would just hold resentment to myself. Not having like a strong male role model in my life affected the way I communicated. I was very passive aggressive. I would so emotionally unstable like all the time. I didn't have that emotional regulation, and I would just go along with the plans of other people and never really touch base with the life that I wanted to live, right? Eventually when I did end up in some more long-term like situationships or relationships, like think about that girl that I was like in a relationship for, or situationship for 5 years. We're exclusive. But I thought about how weak of a partner I was. Man, I definitely was not ready because I was always like interested in other girls and my eyes were always wandering. Though I never cheated, why was that the case? And a lot of times I did that because like I was always looking for the next best thing. But the truth is, like, when you're dealing with people, there's no best thing. Everything is very, very subjective. And I had very, very little gratitude for my partner at the time. Eventually, when that relationship ended, I was so heartbroken. I felt like, man, this person loved me unconditionally for like the last 5 years. I don't know if it's based off her attachment style too, because I was the avoidant one and she was the anxious in that relationship. I was like, man, I don't think anyone's ever going to love me ever again. It didn't take very, very long. I met someone else very, very quickly. And this time I got a taste of my own medicine. I dated the avoidant person and I was the anxious person. Like the girl didn't want kids, but I wanted kids and I was willing to like forego the decision of making kids. During that experience, right, I was so devastated. I was so heartbroken because like I remember that feeling of like giving everything and it still didn't work out. But after that period, I also realized like, man, I kind of lost respect for myself too. I realized like that was people pleasing at the max. Like, how insecure was I to like forgo my kids and to pick up my life and align my life to someone that, you know, I cared a lot about, don't get me wrong, but just makes me really, really sad that I was at such a low point and I was just so desperate. And I think that was the point where I realized like I wasn't happy with the man I was at the time. I was like emotionally unregulated, all over the place. I was like gaining a lot of weight. My business was not stable at all. It was going through ups and downs. And it was hard for me to even like maintain clients because I was just such an emotional wreck. When you're not in a good place, no matter how hard you try to hide it or try to not let it show, it shows. It's kind of like your ex-girlfriend, like she's like clearly mad at you and you ask, what's wrong? And she's like, nothing's wrong. And then you're like, oh, she's definitely pissed at something. And that was the epiphany that I had. I think it was that at that point where I realized like, this is not the man that I really want to be, the role model like I want to be for my kids. This ultimately, this way of communicating is going to f my life over. I will most likely end up being like my dad somehow. And so I made a decision to really stop the generational like bullshit. I did not want to be like my dad. And that's when I made the decision to be single, to kind of be that masculine role model that I always knew I could be inside, to realize that, self-actualize and realize that inner potential I've always told myself about, and to really have this sense of like self-respect. A lot of women don't understand sometimes, but like men don't really relate to self-love. I mean, for lack of a better word, back in my day, people would just be like, you're gay, or like self-love. It's so funny. But there's something about self-respect. You carry yourself a certain way. You just have this mission and drive. It was always within me, but I just had it kind of like beating the shit out of me over the years. There was these 3 different areas that I really wanted to work on. So the first area that I really worked on was attachment style. I realized I had an insecure attachment style when I dated the LA girl. When I took the quiz right after my breakup in LA, I was an avoidant attachment style. If you don't know what attachment style is, the way I like to think about it is that there's like 3 main attachment styles. There's the secure attachment style where you're okay being alone, you communicate tactfully and all that. There's the avoidant one. Think about this as a flight response to like any argument or conflict. They just like run off, like leave me alone, and they don't want to talk about anything. That was me at one point. And then there's the anxious. I like to think of this as the fighter. This person is like, let's resolve this now. There's a stage 5 clinger. I was kind of both. And it was through these modalities where I really reflected and learned how to calm myself down, where I don't react in a fight or flight response. In the book Attached, I did a whole review on it. One of the recommendations if you are insecure attachment style is to be single for a bit and just notice the way that you talk. Sometimes you can hire a therapist. While I didn't hire a therapist specifically for attachment styles, therapy did help me, kind of taught me how to label my emotions, how to recognize my emotions, how to sit with my emotions, and how to have a better conversation with myself or talk to myself in a more compassionate way, where I wouldn't have these moments of reacting and be like, talk to me now, or like, I don't want to talk about this. Basically helped me emotionally regulate. So I'd have these moments where I would be like, hey, it seems like you're feeling a bit anxious, Kevin. What's going on for you? I would have these conversations in my head. Over time, I realized that these sort of things would just help me calm me down. Fun fact, I took a quiz recently about my attachment style because I was very curious, and I'm secure now. That was one of the things I really wanted to learn, because conflict will eventually happen to everyone, and being able to navigate that more tactfully, I think, is an important skill. Let's talk about the second thing: mission, vision, and purpose. Purpose was always a hard thing for me to figure out. I felt like I was always on the chase to figure out my purpose, but really, in actuality, we don't go find purpose. Purpose actually finds us. And one of the things that I always did was I was just so busy all the time that I distracted myself with like cheap dopamine hits. If you ask any of my friends back in the day, I used to go out like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sometimes I'd go out Wednesday, and sometimes I'd go out Sunday too. I was distracted by all these like women and stuff, but I was addicted to porn. I was addicted to cheap TV. I was addicted to a lot of different things, and always chasing. And I always had to be around people. After doing all those cheap dopamine hits, I realized I never really left enough space to really be like, hey Kevin, what do you really want? There was this book, It's called The Way of the Superior Man. One of my favorite books right now. And it talks about the masculine and feminine energy, which is so important. And maybe I'll do a separate video on this book too, because there's just so much value in this book. It was only until recently where I kind of let my vision come to me. And I think this book really, really helped me because it helped me like lead me down like questions. I took a lot of space in my life over these last 2 years just to kind of reflect a lot more. Because growing up, I never really asked myself, like, what do I really want? How do I want my life to look like in 5, 10, 15 years? I was just doing what everyone else was doing. That's why I don't believe in like productivity, like just for the sake of productivity. It has to have a purpose, a vision, or something at the end of it. I realized like what the core reason why I wasn't able to find that was because I was in such my feminine energy, restorative and helping other people, but I wasn't really pouring back into myself and creating something new. If you ever see the yin yang diagram, I started embodying like more than masculine and using a little bit that dot of femininity into that circle. And so I started doing things like jujitsu again and taking it very, very seriously. I started new business ventures and thinking bigger. Like right now at the moment, I want to start this SaaS company and I'm building out the software. I'm building out a mastermind to bring people together. And I also have like joint partnerships too. And I want to be like the top affiliates for certain things on this YouTube channel. And all this has me super, super excited. All that didn't come just from nowhere. And there were some questions that really helped me kind of point me in the right direction. I met Vanessa Lau at her Supercharged Mastermind. She had some great question prompts. She wrote, what are the painful points in your life that you personally experienced that you want to help other people with? What do you think is total bullshit? And what do you believe more people should believe? What offers and experiences will you create to drive this mission? There's Mike Kim, also my friend, but he talks about personal brand. He actually has a whole book called You Are the Brand, but he says what pisses you off, what breaks your heart, and what's the big problem that you're trying to solve. And at the moment, every creator needs real friends that nurture their creativity to bring out their best work. And how I do that is deliver free no BS courses, in-depth ultimate product reviews, genuine heart-to-heart unscripted conversations like this. My vision is just bringing bold creators together to make real friends, spark collabs and partnerships, and help others live courageously. Finding my purpose just made everything a lot easier. It's natural to have these like callings in life and these different seasons in your life where I'm no longer trying to align to someone else's vision. I'm aligning to my own vision, to my own mission, to my own purpose. If a feminine energy comes into my life, she can align to it, right? If we have aligned values and all that. Ever since that was a major game changer for me because I wasn't just idly living life anymore. I actually had a mission and purpose. It made my life so much more simpler. I stopped becoming a foodie. I stopped like masturbating, significantly reduced. I quit caffeine. I quit all these things. And all of a sudden, when I defined my purpose, that was when like crazy things started happening. Women wanted to come down and see me and like hook up and stuff. And I said no. I might be crazy, but this leads me to the last thing, which is probably the most important. It's having that self-respect for myself. It's one thing to like, oh, don't jerk off, but it's another thing to just be like, I just want to quit my degenerate habits just because I respect myself. If I respect myself as a man, I will do my best to like abstain from everything that I can possibly can. It doesn't mean that I'm perfect, but it means that I take responsibility when I wake up. I do my best to like treat myself well. That means like sleeping for 8 hours at a time, not like going out, obviously not doing drugs, also like not eating junk food all the time. But it's all because like I self-respect myself. It's not for anyone else, it's just like for me. Part of self-respect is that you find fulfillment in your life. The more I do this, the more I realize like the quick dopamine hits don't satisfy me. Like, yeah, they make me happy in the moment, but I think this thing that I'm looking for is more than just a quick happiness. It's about fulfillment, long-term fulfillment, looking back at something to be proud, to delay gratification, to build something bigger. And that's why I've stayed single for so long. I'm not putting anyone on a pedestal, but I want to attract that feminine energy in my life. If there's one thing I learned, all those external reasons, they will fade away. But if you do it for yourself, that's that internal drive that you create where you keep on going. People always ask me like, what is your drive? And that is my drive, like self-actualization, being able to master things in the long term and just come to a point to be like, why am I doing this? And then move on to the next stage of like learning something new to mastery, then self-actualization, and going through that cycle. I'm not gonna lie though, it is very, very lonely. There's times where I just like want to like jump off a bridge and stuff, and I wonder like what will happen to me. There's times where I feel sad. There's times where I feel angry. But the one thing I realize is that your feelings are not your identity. Your thoughts are not your identity. As in Buddhist sayings, like you are the one that watches. Something I always remind myself is that you're not single forever. It's just a season. I'll be a testament of that because I thought after the last person, I thought I would never find anyone ever again. I think a big part of me was kind of like quiet quitting. Like, what's the point? I'm never gonna find someone who truly loves me again. But it's crazy. Like, have you ever had something so magnetic in your life that it was inseparable? Recently, I found a feminine energy in my life that shares a mutual interest. When you do find that feminine energy, or you do find your counterpart, I realized that my masculine energy, my masculine being just goes up through the roof. When I talk to this person, or when I think about this person, it inspires me to up my game. Play those, like, question I've been asking myself is like, am I wasting my 10x skill on 2x games, 2x opportunities? And that's the motivation to do M&A. That's the motivation to like these masterminds. That's the motivation to do a SaaS product, right? To grow this YouTube channel and be the leading YouTube businesses out there. This person, when I see her, I feel so excited again, where all other women are kind of like invisible to me. And I haven't felt like that in forever. This person makes me really feel excited about life, to build something long lasting with them. We have such similar values of like family and like not hooking up. I think when you find someone of similar values, it makes me really, really excited about like the future, what sort of things we can build long term. Not only like as a family, but also like business things. And I always like joke around. I'm like Alex Hormozy, but looking for my Laylo. So when you find this feminine energy, you just feel understood and accepted. And I think that was always something that I was like really, 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 really searching for. Someone who would accept me, who kind of understands like the ups and downs of business, who would accept me if I was like a multi-billionaire or like a homeless person, and knows like that things aren't forever. Things are temporary. And when I'm around her, I just feel like she sees me for the man I am, the values I hold, the integrity I hold for myself, the ambition that so many people like don't see behind the scene, but she sees it. Now, I'm not saying like this person's the one. I'm not saying that your boy's going to get married, but I feel so drawn and I want to commit to this person and just like spend the rest of my life with this person. But like I said, if you're someone who's single, this is the hard work. And I don't know if this is going to pay off. I don't know, like, all this. Like, dude, your boy's still single at 35. Deep down inside, I know in the long run, if I can continue balancing this masculine drive along with that feminine restorative energy that I have, everything will work out. I really do believe if you keep on working on yourself, that you will attract the right person in your life. And just really build a better relationship of self-respect. I think that's the most important thing that you do. You're not single forever. It's just a season. Anyways, I talked a lot. Watch this next video that the algo gods think you'll like. Anyways, I'll talk to you later. Take care. Peace.